All right, I'm excited to be here. I am holding on to the edge of my seat because for the whole year of 2023, I have been wanting to do this, and now the opportunity has come. Um, I have been wanting to do something for community outreach for a long time, so I have many notebooks, and what I wanted to do was just come up with some events where we just tackled talking to people from the city of Plainfield, but it wasn't going to be for the city of Plainfield. It was going to be things and people who aspire to inspire individuals here in the city of Plainfield. And the biggest one that I wanted to do was mental health. Looking at what mental health was, we knew that mental health was going to be for the month of May, but I just knew that it couldn't wait any longer. Constantly being on social media, I just knew that people were always talking about black holes and depression and anxiety. People were getting diagnosed with ADHD and all these different types of diagnoses. And ironically, I happened to Google black therapists because I knew I wanted to put on this big event and your name came up. So I want to just first tell my story, and then before I introduce you, you'll see how the dots connect.
Okay.
But I am Erica Brown. I am a lifelong city resident here at the city of Plainfield. And just my story, I have kept to myself for a long time, and I vow to contribute 2024 to sharing my testimony, and hopefully that it will inspire other people. My mother always said, once God has given you a second chance, it is your duty to give somebody else that. And so I was diagnosed with Cushing's disease in 2012, which is a endocrinologist tumor of my pituitary gland. Through that, I have had 4 brain surgeries, blood transfusions. They actually clipped my carotid artery.
Oh.
I hurt myself cold twice during brain surgery. And it has put me in such a bad place. And people look at me, I'm smiling, I'm the jokester, that's how I deal with my depression. But when I open my door to go home, I am a mess. And I think a lot of us were we have 2 different types of faces that we share in the light of the world. I think social media actually contributes to that, where we are one person when we leave our house, but when we come home, we deal with a lot. And
It's
so
true.
I could not be more than happy to be at this moment. I'm grateful that I'm still here, but to say that I have never ever experienced suicide or suicidal thoughts, and to be honest with you, that is a symptom that comes with depression and it comes with Cushing's disease. I just wanted to be a voice and let people know out there that you're not alone. I'm not just saying that because we're here today, sit on these chairs, but it's real to know that the pressure of life, whether
Life
you
be
are,
lifing.
yeah, life be life, and it's funny. I wanted to have a shirt that says "Life be life," but I decided to wear Black Mental Health Matters. I think about men and what they go through as a young man who's trying to do right and be a father, and a woman is telling them, "Oh, you're not good enough. You know, where's the money at? You know, and they're doing everything that they possibly can, and I see it, and they're still not at that bar. You know, that pressure. I think about people at work who are trying to get to work on time, and they just had a breakdown with their child in the morning trying to get them to school. It's traffic, it's everything, and their boss is saying, if you come to work one more time late, you're done. I think about grieving. That's a whole nother level. I think in the city of Plainfield, I've probably been to 7 or 8 funerals in the last 3 weeks. And ironically, today we are honoring the gentleman who sacrificed his life, the firefighter. His funeral, and his viewing is today, his funeral services is tomorrow. It's just so much stuff that we deal with on a normal basis. When is the relief? Where do we go to? And so I don't know what the answer is in terms of how we deal with it. I just know, especially in our community, I was always told, and not literally by my parents, I think just like where we come from, you just turn to roll with the punches, be tough. I was an athlete too, so that was another hard part about it, because it was just like, get up, toughen up, let's go. And so even with my diagnosis with Cushing's disease, normally they said take 6 or 7 years to be diagnosed with Cushing's disease because it has so many different things that you might think it might be.
Because of the misdiagnosis.
Misdiagnosis. And so I should have probably been said something about having these extreme headaches. And I should have probably been said something about the different things that I was going through. But being an athlete, I was just like, it's okay. I would just shake my head and go, it's okay. Meanwhile, I'm dealing with like migraines that are making me nauseous, but it's this way of life that, especially women, you have to be the strong black woman, you know, and it's
We
these
don't have to be
pressure,
strong black women, but we can talk about that.
but we tend to be.
We've been socialized to think we have to be strong.
Right.
Strong is relative.
Right. And even so, I just recently, I had car troubles, and everybody's like, I'll help you. You know, you can use the car. I'll give you a ride. I'm like, no, I got it. I have it. I'll take the train. It's just this pride that we have that we just don't. My struggle is I don't like asking for help. Even when I know I shouldn't be standing at the train station at 9 o'clock waiting for the train when people have offered me to take me home. It's just this pride. So I Googled, because I knew I wanted to have this event. And when the event this is a two-part thing for those who are watching and listening, but it's going to be a two-part thing where we wanted to do this intimate interview with you today. And the next part, we will have a panel discussion where people can do a Q&A and ask questions about mental health and get more information. But I Googled a black therapist from the city of Plainfield, and your name came up, and I'm like, I see you twice a week at class here. I had no idea, and then my mind just started wondering because from having Cushing's disease, was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and then I found out through going back to school that I had ADHD. Like I could not focus. I had what they call ADHD paralysis, where I knew I had a lot of work to do, and I would just sit there with my pen in my hand, and I would just stare at my work. And I'm like, I know something's wrong, because I know I have work to do, but I just can't get it done. I went to the doctor. They gave me this paper to fill out, like, do you cut people off when you talk? And do you finish your work? And do you have trouble doing these things? And I answered pretty much yes to everything. And it was like, oh, you have ADHD. I learned to smile at it, but it does cause you to have some type of depression with it, because it's like, I'm different. And I learned to accept that I'm different, and I use it to like a advantage, because whereas people only can focus on one thing, I can focus on 10 at one time. So I call it my superhero gifts. But to my right, I have Miss Agness McLean, therapist, clinician. I don't know the full term.
Actually, I'm a licensed clinical social worker.
Okay. And I just have so many questions. And like I said, this is just a conversation to try to tackle the things that we face in one urban area, picking the right person to talk to. And also, why is there such a stigma when it comes to therapy in our community? These are the things that I wanted to know, and I'm pretty sure there's others that face those same questions. So before we get into it, let's introduce yourselves. Where do you work? How did you get into it? Why do you love the industry that you're in?
Those are all good questions. As I mentioned earlier, I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do growing up, but I grew up with grief and depression, and I really thought that's just the way I was. I knew I was different, but I just rolled with it. And when I was in my 30s, I finally found a clinician or a therapist that was able to diagnose what the issue was. I had PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And through working with him and processing some of my trauma, that helped me to get to the point where the depression wasn't so overwhelming. I was suicidal. I could function. I think we would be surprised how many people who have major depression or who have serious mental health issues, I think we'd be surprised how many people can actually function and you haven't figured it out.
Right.
I thought I was really good at hiding it sometimes. Anyway, the therapist said to me, you know, you'd be good at this. And I was like, I don't understand how somebody with mental health issues could be helpful to somebody else. And he said, you've been there and done that. You didn't read it in a book. You didn't learn it in the classroom. You've lived it.
Right.
So through him and then another therapist, I decided to go back to school, and I got my MSW, Master's in Social Work. And then I became a licensed clinical social worker. I love it because I can look at someone and I can say, if I can get through it, you can too. Also, I have a son who had mental health issues. He passed away 6 years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
Fentanyl, alcoholism, mental health issues. And that was another reason why I went to school. I wanted to figure out what was going on in his head. That was really, really important to me, to try to understand who he was. And a lot of times I would sit in classroom and I would say, I would relate whatever issue he was having to what I was learning. Does that make sense?
It does.
So when I work with someone who has a mental health issue, I can relate in terms of grief, having lost my son, and I can relate on so many other levels. The biggest thing, though, is I can say to someone, if I can get to happy, you can too.
That's good to know. It's almost like me. So people say, you're always smiling. I said, listen, I use the saying, even on my worst day, somebody's praying for my worst day. And that makes me happy.
And that, what you said, also if you think about our ancestors, one day I was walking around my house and I was depressed. I don't know what it was. And I happened to glance up at my mother's picture. Well, my mother had 7 children. She was dead at 29.
Wow.
I was 2 years old. My brother was 9 months old. My mother had cancer. She did not have nice things. She didn't have a happy marriage. There were just, I do believe from what my siblings say, I don't remember her, but from what my siblings say, I believe that my mother also suffered from depression. So I looked at her picture and I was like, I'm living her dream. End of that. So for that day, that was it. So sometimes I remind myself of how far removed I am from what her life was. So if you think about our ancestors and some of the things that they had to go through, our worst day is a good day for them.
Right, right. So let's talk about the different types of depression and what depression looks like, right? Because people think depression, they automatically think, I'm a visual person, right? Pooh Bear and Igor, right? Right? They think about like this person who's always depressed, his head slumped down, and that's far from the case. So you think about Robin Williams and how he was this funny guy.
And he was.
But yet he was dealing, like I said, this double life. And I really put myself in his shoes because I feel like I'm the same way. I'm the class clown, I'm the funny one, but it's living a tired, double life.
We have coping skills to help us to wear the mask. So your coping skill might be being the class clown. Depression doesn't have one face. It depends on who the person is.
Right.
You know, like you said, you go home, you close the door, and you become a different person. You sigh. I think that, again, it doesn't have one look because we have different coping skills and because we have unhealthy ways of masking it. I think that sometimes we don't even know or we can't admit that we are depressed. And I think that sometimes we have trouble admitting that we need help.
Right. So that was going to be my next question. Is that healthy to either mask it with laughter or to mask it with overworking? Because that was another thing that I found myself doing. I felt when I slowed down and I had to realize dealing with it, I didn't like that. So then I'll find another task to complete, another job to do.
So starting criteria for depression is if you have been feeling that way for 2 weeks or more, might be time to think about getting some help.
Segue. So getting help.
Okay.
Before we get into the financing and insurance and all that.
Well, let me just back up. I want to say one other thing, about depression. If you're having suicidal, homicidal ideations, intentions, or if you're planning your suicide, you need help.
Right.
I was sitting in church one Sunday. I was sitting in church. I was planning my funeral during the service. And it kind of hit me. Oh, you might need to talk to somebody. Maybe it would help if you talk to somebody about this instead of planning out, writing out what you want. That's how bad it had gotten. So I telephoned someone that next day, Monday. I got an appointment that night and I kept it. But if you're having thoughts of hurting yourself, if you're having thoughts of hurting someone else, if you're given up or you want to give things away, if you can't get out of bed, isolating yourself from your loved ones, if you're feeling hopeless or trapped, if you're giving away possessions, you have an increase in substance abuse, increased mood swings, rage, anger, if you're engaging in risk-taking behavior or unprotected sex, time to talk to somebody.
I didn't have any of those, but what I felt like, I used to tell myself, if God don't want me to wake up, I'm okay with it. Like I didn't want to harm myself, I didn't want to hurt anybody, but I had gotten so depressed between medical bills that I didn't ask for. I had this rare disease that affected 2 out of 1 million people. I'm trying to get help. They don't know what Cushing's disease is. They're telling me, oh, we can't help you. There's no Susan G. Komen for that. I had one bill that was almost $500,000 from the hospital. I'm like, they clipped my carotid artery. I didn't do it.
One thing that we don't talk about enough, I don't ever hear anyone talk about the depression often goes along with a major diagnosis. That's not unusual at all. And so when we see a doctor, when a doctor gives us a diagnosis and says this is the treatment plan, along with that treatment plan, ideally there should be a social worker, there should be some mental health services, because it's a major illness. It's a major diagnosis. How could you not be?
Right.
How could you not be depressed? And you're trying to figure out how to pay for it. And there should be, the mental health services should include a support group so that you will know that you're not alone.
I just remember going from one doctor to like 17. It was just so overwhelming. If you don't wake me up, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Depression, though, can also look like crying all the time, sad all the time. Depression can be no energy or low energy. Depression can be not having any interest in activities, or something you used to enjoy, you don't enjoy anymore, or you just don't feel like it. I used to wake up in the morning and I used to be like, Lord, I told you last night it would be okay if I didn't wake up.
Yep.
And I was a little upset because I felt like she didn't hear me, I told you, like, you know how I feel. And I used to drive to work sometimes and I would say, just let me get to work. Let me hold back the tears until I get through the workday, and then I'll be okay. So I'd cry all the way to work, cry all the way home. But I'd be glad because at least I didn't cry at work. So depression it can look like so many things. It has so many scenarios, so many faces.
This is so good.
But if you're feeling like that, you need to get some help.
And where do you start?
So that's a good question. The first thing you may, if you have a good friend, if you have somebody you can trust, talk to them. If it's somebody, look, this is how I'm feeling, talk to them. If a good friend can help you find a therapist if you just can't bring yourself to look for one or make the appointment. So you want to look for, I made a list of things you want to look for or what you want to ask. You want to ask if the person is licensed. And in the state of New Jersey, you have to be an LCSW to be able to be a therapist, a licensed social worker. You can Google them. You can do what you did. You can Google therapist near me. You can go to Psychology Today. You can go to ZocDoc. There's so many different ways you can put in your zip code and the therapist will come up. And when you find somebody, you want to ask them what kind of training they've received. Where'd they go to school? What's their specialty or area of expertise? What is their treatment orientation? I'll come back to that. The cost per session, how does scheduling work? Will therapy be time limited or long term? The reason that I ask that is because a lot of times when we see a therapist, we think it's supposed to work like microwave. If you've been depressed for years or for a long time, or if you have major depression, or depending on what the diagnosis is,
Right.
one session might not do it. I remember going to therapy for a year, and I remember saying to the therapist, I don't feel any better. I didn't. I thought something was wrong with me.
I'm laughing because I haven't had a good experience with the therapist that I first went to.
Okay, I thought it was me. I don't feel,
Right.
he reassured me. We're working on some deep stuff here. I'm glad I stuck with it. I'm glad I stuck with it because for me, it's one of the best things I ever did because it helped me to process my trauma so that I could get to the point where I could be happy and mostly whole. Now, if you ask my children, they'll tell you I still got issues, but it's all right. It's okay. So you want to know how long, okay, so I have X diagnosis. Give me some sort of time frame for what kind of work we can do.
Right.
Now, the reason that I say that is because if I see a therapist once a month, I can't expect things to necessarily improve in 2 or 3 months. If I see that therapist once a week or once every other week, then the time frame is going to be different. Does that
Right.
make sense?
No, it does.
So you want to ask that. You also want to ask, what's their specialty? Is it depression? Is it ADHD? Is it PTSD? Is it dissociative disorder? And on and on and on and on and on. There's so many diagnoses. Is it grief? You want to ask. And the other thing that I want to really emphasize is that when you see a therapist, please try to be honest. Because it's hard to help somebody if they're going to hold back. And so in other words, if the therapist asks me about my substance use history, and I say, oh, all I do is drink tea, and I know I'm doing pot, I'm doing this, that, and the third, that's going to affect
The results.
Try to be honest. That
Right.
helps.
And then picking somebody who understands you culturally.
So as far as I'm concerned, it is extremely important to have someone, to work with somebody you can relate to.
Right.
You have to, if a therapeutic relationship is a relationship where you and the therapist work together, you work hand in hand. So you have to be able to trust that person. And you have to be able to sense that they feel you, that they get you. So culturally, it's really, really important. I worked with a therapist that looked like me. That helped me a lot.
Yeah, I didn't. So I had like a really bad experience where I felt like I was dictating and leading the conversations and
Let's talk about that for a minute. A lot of times, so I remember probably the first time I saw a therapist. He ain't look like me. It was a disaster. It was a total disaster. I couldn't relate to him. He couldn't relate to me. I don't even remember how I got to him now, but I'm so glad. So my point is, if it doesn't work the first time, find somebody else. It's just because the first therapist or the second one, if it's not a good fit, move on. But ask questions initially so that it can be as good a fit as possible. The second, so the day after I'm sitting there in church planning my funeral, I actually drove to Philadelphia because I had heard a therapist speak in my church, and he talked about an issue that I had. He was the only person I had ever heard do that. So I went, I called his office and made an appointment, and I drove to Philadelphia because I needed someone who could relate, who could understand what I was saying. Guess what? He did. It was worth the trip.
yeah.
But I really went out of my way. How bad do you want it? How bad do you want to feel better? I was desperate. Desperate.
No, that's good information.
So just remember, ask questions, look at their bio, look at their, everything's on the internet now.
And that's good for any doctor. I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
your primary care, your neurologist,
There you go.
should look at their bio and see.
There are exceptions to every rule. But yes, search again. You can also ask friends for referrals.
Yeah.
Is there somebody that you know of? And the more we talk about it, I remember when I first started telling my friends that I was seeing a therapist, they thought that was odd, but they knew I was odd, so, it didn't seem so
Aren't we
odd.
all?
Okay, but we have to normalize it because if you need help, you need help. If I have a medical issue, I need to see a doctor. So as a people, we need to, I know, I'm from Macon County, Alabama, home of the Tuskegee experiment. But if you need to see a doctor, you need to see a doctor. So find one, and they're out there. You might have to work a little harder to find them. But our health, mentally and physically, is our wealth.
Absolutely.
There was no way our ancestors could have survived all that they went through unless they were able to somehow, some way, take care of themselves. And taking care of your physical health, taking care of your mental health is a way of taking care of yourself.
All right. Now, before we get into like knowing the numbers and everything else, I want to jump into our youth. So part of us being here at the Plainfield Performing Arts Center, we're right down the street from the high school. I'm a big advocate for our young people, and they just happen to just stop here. And I am learning that now is the time that they are getting in a lot of trouble, and they are troubled. And I look at their patterns. I am not at all a clinician, a therapist. However, I notice things. I notice that when a kid who's in their teenage years just loves to sit by me, they're crying out for help, and I can't help them. What can we do to steer them, and how can we steer them to getting some help when they're pretty much raising themselves? I'm not their parent, so I can't push them over to a therapist, but I see that they need help.
So I want to back up a little bit, and I want to challenge what you said about you can't help them. You are helping them. You're providing a safe space. Safety is so important. If you don't have it, it's an issue.
Right.
So you are helping them. Informally, in informal ways, we as a people have always provided support for each other.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily a mental health person with a license and a bunch of stuff behind their names.
Right.
Therapy can be a listening ear.
True.
Therapy can be a safe place. Therapy can be a warm coat.
True.
Therapy can be a cup of soup. So I think that in some ways we need to remember that, and we need to embrace what our ancestors did. And the reason that I say that is because everybody doesn't have the capacity to shell out $100, $150, $200 for a therapy appointment.
Right.
But it takes, there are other ways that we can do it. Safety is really big. If you provide a safe space for them, that's big. You provide a listening ear, somebody that hears me, that's important.
Okay. Thank you. That's good information.
So if they're coming to you, you're doing the work. That's big.
Plainfield is a wonderful community. It's a 6-mile radius place, but it's very family oriented. I know you know that. Ironically, we were at an event and you and my mom went to school together, and I just feel like that's how the community is. You're out and about and people go, well, what's your last name? I'm like, well, my last name is Brown, but my mother's last name is Gomes. So if you know any of the black Gomes, you know my family. Oh, well, I went to school with your uncle or whatever the case may be. And I think we need to just get back to that. Get back to that family oriented. If your parent didn't get you, and the neighborhood knew who your parents was, so you knew you couldn't act up. And it takes a village. And
It does.
I stand on those principles, and I know now, like the kids who go to the high school, I can get calls from the school, like one of your kids was acting up. I'm like, well, which one was it? Send them to P-PAC after school. And so before they get here, I already know what they did, why, who else were they with, and it helps. It helps with keeping kids on the straight and narrow path so we don't lose them to society. And ironically enough, they like structure. They might not admit it, but they keep coming back. For whatever reason, they come back to me.
We need structure. Children know what they need.
So, as much as they get in trouble, the first thing they say is, I'm going through a lot. And I encourage them, if they didn't want to talk to me face to face, that I'll give them a notebook and they can write to me.
Journalism is an excellent form of therapy. I often recommend it. Write it down. Oftentimes we can write what we can't speak. Do you remember I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings? Mm-hmm. Maya couldn't say it. She was afraid that it would hurt Bailey if she spoke it. But she wrote a book about it. So that's a form of therapy, journaling.
Okay. I think I'm on the path of being a therapist.
I think informally you already are.
No, I try to be that for people. Only because I feel like I have enough family and people who I had adopted to be my family for me, and I just want to.
If we think about it, I mean, if we think about it, there's usually at least one person, maybe more, who supported us in some way, shape, or form. And that support helped us get through whatever it was. Now, it might be harder for our young people to find the support they need because we're living in, there's so much anxiety now.
Yeah.
People are so overwhelmed.
Yep.
There's so much going on in the world. And then there's social media.
We talked about that a little bit, and you had you could share what you thought about social media and how it.
I think it's more dangerous than helpful, especially for young people. They don't know how to filter.
Yeah.
Adults have trouble filtering it.
I use social media for business, but I was sharing with somebody the other day. I said, back in the day, you joke around with your friends, you laugh and you say a little joke here and there, and it stayed at the table in the cafeteria. Now, in 10 seconds, it has blown up to hundreds of people, and everybody know the joke that you said, and this person took it too far, and now it's a meme. So I can see where that goes.
Yeah.
And kids just take it too far.
Well, there's a power, it can be a tool, but it can also be a weapon.
Yeah.
When we use social media as a weapon, then that's a dangerous thing. What are we fighting? Who are we fighting?
Well, we have some numbers that we want to get out to the people.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of the 988 number. If you're in a crisis, that's one place to start. That's a suicide hotline. I also wanted to talk about I also just wanted to just make sure that everybody has that number in your phone. You can always call it if you're in a crisis. So if you don't have anybody you can talk to, don't have anybody you can call, I can't reach Erica, call 988. That can be a starting point. We have to, the trick is you're the only person that feels this way. The trick is nobody's gonna understand. The trick is nobody gets you. And that's not true. You gotta talk about it. You have to reach out. You have to start somewhere. You have to be able to say to someone that you trust, I need to talk about this. I need to get this off my chest. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
The first time that I met with the therapist, so I'm driving down to Philadelphia. I gave my kids dinner. I left a note for their father, I think. And I hit the road. I didn't know where I was going. I'd never driven to Philadelphia in my life. I'm sure it was the Holy Spirit that got me safely to his office. And I was able to say what I hadn't been able to say for decades.
Wow.
Sometimes, in our culture in particular, we were taught that what goes on at home stays at home.
That.
But that can kill you.
And when you feel like you have mental health issues, the thing that ticks me off is when they say, where's your religion at? That sends me through the roof. It's still here.
Okay, so there's a lot of, okay. So I know that sometimes when we go to church, people will say, well, Chani, just pray. Well, okay, when you pray, that's fine, but when you get up off of your knees, you gotta do something. Faith without works is dead, so I just can't pray and leave it there. I gotta pray and then do something. So pray and then call a therapist.
You heard it first.
But talking about it, the more we talk about it, the better.
Absolutely.
The more we talk about it, listen, there is no situation that's uncommon to man. What do I mean by that? There's nothing that has happened to me or you or anybody else that hasn't happened to somebody else.
Right.
The trick again is thinking it's only me. Oh, I can't tell Erica that. Oh, if I tell Erica that, she'll think da, 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 da. No, there's no situation that's uncommon to man.
Right.
There's nothing that hasn't happened before to somebody else. And thinking that we have to keep it quiet, then it's just going to manifest itself some other way. Anyway, I said to my therapist, I said what I hadn't been able to say for decades. And guess what? That was the beginning of me being free from that as opposed to being bound by it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes wonderful sense.
That was the beginning of me
was
breaking out of
the
those chains. Yeah. Do you remember Mr. in The Color Purple said, "You better not tell nobody but God"? Well, you know what? Mr. was wrong. He was wrong. Celie should have told everybody.
Yeah. Mental health is real, but it's not the end all be all. I feel like we all have some type of mental health.
So, my grandmother used to say, everybody got to cross the bear. If it ain't one thing, it's another. We have physical challenges, we have mental health challenges. It's not, okay, so this is my challenge. What am I going to do with it?
Right.
Okay, so I have PTSD, I have a diagnosis of PTSD, I have a diagnosis of depression, I have a diagnosis of anxiety, I have a diagnosis of ... What am I gonna do about it?
Right.
I remember when my son was diagnosed, I was so glad, first of all, to finally get a diagnosis. Because then I thought, now we can come up with a plan of action.
Right.
Now we can figure out what to do about it. And I remember thinking, when my son was diagnosed, I remember thinking, well, okay, I'm glad this didn't happen 50 years ago or 100 years ago, because 100 years ago, they just locked people up in a room and leave them or experiment on them or whatever. Now their medications, they don't all work all the time, but there are other treatment modalities. There are other interventions. Do you know there's something called walk-talk therapy? So for somebody who has ADHD, instead of sitting across from a therapist and talking, we can walk and talk. It's fantastic. There's so many ways that we can address mental health issues and get to mental health. Does that make sense?
It does.
There's so many schools of thought, and we can take Western medicine and we can mix that with what our ancestors knew, and we can come up with ways not only to live, not only to survive, but to live, not only to function, but to live and live well with whatever it is. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Because until I had it all, like I said, I would just keep it in. And it did nothing for me, but made it worse.
I was going to say, how did that work out for you?
Not good.
So if what we're doing is not working, we need to do something else.
Yeah. And I know I'm not the only one.
You are not.
And I know that what we're doing today is going to open up and pique the interest of a lot of other people.
There is no situation that's uncommon to man. That's what my therapist taught me. You're not alone? Oh, really? It's like a novel concept. Oh, this is what that is?
So this is the first day of a series of events that we're going to have towards mental health, because I believe that mental health is huge. I would love to do, like I said, the next event to have a panel of people who are here that can then ask questions right on the spot. I would love to have a breakout day where we can have ways that we can channel our mental health with the arts, because this is the arts event, PPAC, which is the Performing Arts Center, where we can have a room that's designed for yoga and a room that's designed for if you want to just go in there and draw or journal. Art therapy or sound. We have a lady that has sound bowls, and that might be another event. But this is just the start to let people know that, once again, you're not alone. And so I thank you. But before we get off, we want to make sure we have that number again in those channels. I think we're going to collab with Bridgeway, which is an organization here in the city of Plainfield, courtesy of Corey Storch, which is a dear friend of mine. So we're going to try to partner up and have an event here for mental health, so people know the resources that we have here in the city of Plainfield. We would love for you to come back for that as well.
I also want to plug intensive family support services.
Absolutely, and you want to do something with the organization you spoke about earlier?
Intensive family support services supports families in the state who have an adult child with mental illness. Intensive family support services in Union County is, in my opinion, one of the best organizations around. There's also Al-Anon, there's AA, there's the Mental Health Association. There's so many places and ways that we can reach out for help. So I would start with those. Intensive family support services offers a support group, and I am one of the co-facilitators of one of the groups.
Okay.
What we do is we provide resources, we provide a listening ear, and the intensive family support services itself provides support for families. Make sense?
Makes sense. So, what we encourage you not to do, or at least me, don't put your business out on Facebook, social media, Twitter, Instagram.
Don't do it.
It's not a good look.
And don't isolate. So this time of year, it's dreary. It's been dreary for about a week, no sun. You know, it's time when you just want to stay home, have a cup of tea, just want to veg. That's good sometimes. But if you know that you have a tendency toward depression, don't isolate. Call somebody. Meet somebody for a cup of tea or shopping, or there's retail therapy too. Don't isolate.
All right. All hearts and minds clear? All right. This is the first of the community outreach conversations. I have more to come. I hope you like it. I hope you stay tuned. And we are clear and out. Thank you.